by the mayor and approved by a majority of city council, usually for terms lasting up to 3 years. Among our duties is to look at site plans and also consider special use requests, which we have on the agenda this evening. At this time, we'll have the roll call, please.
Mr. Edmonds.
Here.
Mr. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Krent.
Here.
Mr. Maxwell.
Here.
Mr. Sanzika.
Here.
Mr. Shepke.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Stratt.
Here.
Mr. Tagle.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Moved by Mr. Schultz, second by Mr. Tagle. Vote on the motion, please.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Next is the approval of the minutes of the February 28th, 2012 special meeting. Are there any additions or changes? Mr. Edmonds?
I would move as published.
All right. Mr. Edmonds moves as submitted. Second by Mr. Tagle. Any discussion? Vote on the motion, please.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Next is item 4, public comments for items not on the current agenda. Is there anyone present wishing to speak on any item which is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one, we'll close that item and move on to item 5, which is a public hearing, special use request, and preliminary site plan review, file number SU 394, proposed Tim Hortons Restaurant, north side of Maple Road, west of John R., 1905 East Maple, Section 26, currently zoned GB General Business District. Now, this is a special use request and a preliminary site plan review. And Mr. Brannigan, you can handle this?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The application before you, as you know, is a small site just immediately to the west of John R. You're looking at it there. If you've been down to the site, you recognize it's a small vacant site. It does have some scrubby vegetation on it. Nothing really, large legacy type trees or anything. It does have a couple decent sized trees along the frontage. Has a small sidewalk in front, although it's pretty overgrown. So the site is ready for redevelopment. There's not a lot going on there. There's a restaurant on one side and another more office-oriented use on the other side. It does technically qualify as a double frontage lot because there is nothing between it and the frontage of Chopin, the drive there coming around the corner. Although you'll note that ultimately we'll talk about the fact that it's zoned IB back there. But there are some ramifications on the site because of that. There are a few informational elements that were deficient on the site plan that we've noted in our comments. I'll bring those up as we go along. Nothing I think that's a big deal breaker. And also I wanted to note that the applicant has provided some additional documentation you have in front of you that does have some bearing on the project. I'll talk about those as we go, but it's a parking, sort of a short parking justification for what ultimately they'd be requesting is parking in excess of our maximum. And then also some additional information about lighting that I referenced in my letter. Like any Tim Hortons, this would be a restaurant with a drive-through facility. It's something that is permitted by a special use in the general business district. The parcel is just less than an acre, 0.75 gross acres in area. I already mentioned the surrounding uses there, but if you're familiar with it, this is a pretty high-intensity, traveled corridor, very automobile-oriented. There's not a whole lot of action down here right at the moment, so any kind of redevelopment on some of these sites is going to be something that's a decent shot in the arm for the area. In terms of layout, it's fairly typical. We have a couple issues with regard to circulation and with regard to how the site is laid out, but somewhat typical. We've got a restaurant in the middle of the site, 360-degree drive, parking along one side, and relatively straightforward. There are a couple of deficiencies in terms of ordinance requirements. The applicant has responded to some of those, and I'm sure that we'll be able to talk with the applicant about ultimately putting a revised plan in front of you or in front of the administration after a conditional approval that would satisfy some of our additional conditions. As you recall, obviously this is a new zoning district. We've only seen a couple of applications in this area. Our sets of setbacks are a little bit different than they used to be. Because it's two front yards, they have a 10-foot minimum setback on both the north and the south. We've got 20 feet on both sides. Building height maximum is 5 stories, 75 feet, 20% open space like anywhere else in the community. They obviously exceed all of these requirements. There are no dimensional deficiencies of the project. In terms of proposed parking, the site plan shows 26 total spaces. By our calculations, based on the square footage of the building, we would only require basically 13 spaces, and you can only have 120% of what's required, so that means that they would be left with an additional 3, which is 16 spaces. So they're 10 spaces in excess of what's required here. Now, there's also an issue with that there's 5 spaces between the front building line and the right-of-way, which of course is not permitted to have parking between the building and the street in the GB district. So, we've already discussed with the applicant, they understand they would need to remove those spaces. The only way to permit those spaces is through variance in the GB district. There's no SDP option or anything available to them for relief in that area. So those spaces need to be removed through a slight reconfiguration. The applicant figures he would be able to have 22 spaces on the site. In the letter that they provided that's actually dated, well, it's not dated, actually, I don't think. No, it's not dated, but the letter that was provided to you under Tim Horton's letterhead, the applicant makes 3 points here about why they are requesting the number of spaces that they're asking. This letter provides some, explanation. I don't think that this letter necessarily quantifies exactly why that particular number of spaces. I don't necessarily have a problem with the number of proposed spaces. They're asking for 6 more than we would allow under the maximum, 22. But there's nothing here that says, well, 22, because typically in this many square feet of a restaurant, we have about this many users on any given point of the day. I would have liked to see some additional actual justifiable, numbers that we could look at and reference. There's nothing like that. What they say here instead is like, well, based on the market, and, we think it's going to be very popular, that kind of, well, that's good, but maybe you can discuss in a little bit more detail with the applicant about how they arrived at the 22 space number. I don't see anything particular that drives us to the 22 space number, other than the fact that they removed the 5 in front, slightly repositioned the building, and they come up with, if they don't eliminate any other spaces, there's 22 left on the site. So actually they're only going to eliminate 4 and then move the building slightly. So you end up with 22. I would like to have a little bit more in-depth discussion why exactly this many spaces. Now, that being said, they have plenty of open space on the site. I don't have a tremendous amount of heartburn over the number of spaces, but typically when we grant a waiver, it's as close to granting a variance as you can get. We typically like to have some sort of documentation we can hang our hat on with regard to the number of spaces. And there's a couple of other things too we'll talk about as we move forward here. Site access and circulation, as I said, typical vehicular access by a single drive to Maple Road as it's placed, it's just fine. You do have, it's nice that it's not one-way circulation. You do have north and south maneuvering in that lane on the right side of the building. So that comes into play later with getting in and out of the site when we talk about the circulation of the stacking lane. Pedestrian access, there's no sidewalk along East Maple Road that's really, serviceable. There is a little bit of an old one there that's all overgrown. They'll be restoring that. On site, they're going to plan a sidewalk linkage to the front of the building. There isn't a sidewalk all the way around the building, but then again, it's got vehicular circulation for a drive-through. So I think that it's probably adequately pedestrianized. In terms of natural resources, there's really nothing to discuss there. There's some scrubby vegetation, but nothing worth preserving. The applicant did provide a photometric plan. It did have a big swath of area in the north part of the site that didn't provide off-site information, and obviously we require that. So we discussed it with the applicant. They did provide us with an expanded revised photometric plan. Unfortunately, it doesn't comply with our ordinance requirements. That wasn't necessarily anybody's fault. It's just that the interpretation of the applicant was that they looked at the ordinance and saw that it was zoned IB and assumed that they were being held to the standard of a non-residential property to the north. But the way the ordinance reads, it says either residentially zoned or residentially used property. And even though it's zoned IB, there are single-family homes on Chopin directly across the street. So they'd be held to the 0.1, not the 1 foot candle limitation there. And I believe that Brent spoke with the applicant, and they're okay with reducing the lighting level there. But that would have to be a condition of any action we would take tonight, is to reduce those lighting levels there. In terms of the landscaping plan, a little bit of confusion here again because of the double frontage nature of the lot when we interpreted it that way. But nothing severe. The 10-foot green belt is provided. In terms of street trees, I spoke with the applicant's engineer, and he said they had omitted the driveway. We talk about this a lot. We end up with one street tree less than is required because people omit the width of the driveway, but our ordinance requires you to add that space in. So they're one tree deficient. Let me see here. 5 trees along there. Site is 185 feet, 6 trees. 1 more that have been provided along the south, and then they would add 2 more to the north, and they would be compliant with having enough street trees on both. So 3 additional street trees, 2 on the north, 1 on the south. Landscaped area is okay. Parking lot landscaping is okay. It's been met. It's a small number of spaces. The site is only allowed to have 16 parking spaces by zoning ordinance, so we would look at, the requirements based on that. 2 trees, necessarily no islands would be required. They don't even have double-loaded parking spaces, so there's no problem there. There's a couple of deficiencies with regard to providing actual calculations that are like what I described. Usually we actually have those calculations right on the site plan. In terms of submittal requirements, just the lighting plan and landscape plan, and then there was a deficiency with seals on the sheets. The architectural plans weren't sealed, but the applicant has subsequently provided revised plans that are sealed, so all the sheets are now sealed. In terms of it being a special use, we look at our typical special use standards. There are specific use standards in Section 610, and then, of course, there's the 9.03 standards of approval. I'll just quickly go through these. This use is intended for location within areas of high traffic. It is. They're providing all the facilities necessary to comply with that. Compatibility with the master plan. This is totally in compliance with the master plan. Traffic impact. Nothing above or beyond anything that would be typical for this area. Public services, the same thing. Compliance with zoning ordinance standards. Just those couple of items that I mentioned before. Nature and character of activities, is it going to be typical for this area? Nothing unusual there. I believe that with conditions, the proposed use is fine in that area. Parking lot, vehicular circulation area is okay. There's one last thing I want to talk about with circulation I neglected to mention. Hours of operation, 24 hours a day is not necessarily an issue here, except for obviously there is a residence immediately to the north, but it's not uncommon for uses to be well into the night in an area like this. We've got a gas station across the street. They operate well into the evening, so nothing unusual here. And although Tim Hortons typically now do operate 24 hours a day or well into the night, they're relatively low intensity. If you'd like to discuss that with the applicant, you could. I don't anticipate any additional noise, vibration, smoke, anything like that. One last thing I've neglected to mention in terms of site circulation. On the initial site plan they provided, they striped out 2 lanes on the west side of the building, which they're not required to do. There's no requirement for that separate and distinct escape lane. And in this area, it kind of hurt them. We have a minimum width of 12 feet for the stacking lanes in the ordinance. And typically what people do is they provide like 19, 20 feet of just paving there, and they don't actually stripe out the stacking lane. We just show where the cars would go there. But it's adequate width for escape. You've got this extra wide lane, you can easily escape there. Because he striped it that way on the site plan, technically it's not meeting ordinance requirements, even though there's plenty of width to comply with ordinance requirements. So, if they were to just remove the striping from the site plan and just have plenty of width there, there's more than adequate space. I think it's 17 feet of paving. So there's adequate width for a car to be at the window, and if the guy behind him decides to bail, he's got plenty of room. And even so, we're not even required to have that escape lane. You'll recall the other Tim Hortons on Rochester Road we have now does not have an escape lane. So if you go into I did that once, pulled into the drive-thru, got stuck, and can I take your order? I said, no, I'm just trying to get out. And I just kind of crept along, and I eventually got out. But there is no escape lane there. So those were all the technical review requirements I had. In closing, there are a number of things here. And the last thing, is loading and unloading and the dumpster pad location. A little bit awkward the way that they're designed. I'd like to discuss that with the applicant. I think those could be laid out a little bit better. There's nothing specifically that requires them to be in any particular area of the site. We do like to see a loading and unloading zone. I can't imagine the way that it's designed right now that anybody would actually move a truck into that position. I could really see it more like a truck just pulls up to that spot and they use that striped area for bringing stuff in and out of the building. If that's suitable to the Planning Commission, we can discuss that. The dumpster pad location, I think, is a little awkward. I would at least like an adequate explanation of how a truck is going to get in and out of that space to pull a dumpster safely in and out of there. I'd much rather see it, possibly along the north property boundary so a truck could just easily grab it and dump it. In short, we've got a couple of informational items. Setback dimensions need to be corrected. Remove the parking spaces from the front yard. Reducing the excess parking down to 16, or if the Planning Commission finds that the explanation the applicant has provided with in terms of the number of spaces is adequate, you could, by right, you can allow the number of spaces and essentially grant a parking waiver for the excess parking. The width for the stacking lane could be corrected by removing the stripe. A possible reconfiguration of the loading and unloading area, the deciduous trees, correction of landscaping calculations, and then the seal for the remaining architectural sheets has been corrected. So although it is a longer list of conditions than maybe you're used to from me, as I've explained, most of them have already been either addressed by the applicant or willing to be addressed by the applicant. Really, we need to concentrate on the number of parking spaces issue and possibly the loading and unloading and dumpster location.
Mr. Brannigan, if we went to something like 18 or 20 parking spaces instead of 26. Do you see a significant improvement in site circulation as a result?
I don't know. I would like to hear the applicant's thoughts on what he would do to correct the site configuration to maybe give us a little bit better circulation for the dumpster pad. It's sort of awkward. I thought, if anything, maybe the dumpster pad would go where those 2 spaces are that are tucked under the south end of the drive-through lane. Seems like the most logical location for a vehicle to just really easily grab it, do a slight back up, and then just make its escape around. Then again, it does provide for 2-way circulation. If the applicant can demonstrate and you are okay with it, that, they're going to be okay getting in and out of that dumpster pad, I guess it's not the end of the world. It's just, I think it's a slightly awkward location, except for the employees. It'd be nice for them because it's closer. But I think probably I would prefer to see it. And we've typically seen it with other drive-through locations, tucked into that spot, because those spaces are kind of useless anyway in that little middle island area. Typically people are going to like to park right adjacent to the building or along the east property boundary. So I don't know if the number of spaces would necessarily, I don't have a calculation for you, but if they need to lose a couple more spaces or a number would make it easier for them, then sure.
Is there any questions, Mr. Brendy?
I've got one.
Mr. Kren?
Is it required to have a bike rack for this zoning?
Actually, yes, it is.
I didn't
you're
see
right.
one, that's all.
Yeah, any parking lot above 10 spaces, yeah, you're right, it is. So, yeah, can you add a 11th condition?
Doesn't everything need a bike rack?
Actually, now that I think of it, yeah, you're right. That is a new provision in our ordinance, so good catch, Mr. Krant.
Mr. Tagle?
A couple of questions, Zach. If they were to be granted a waiver to increase the parking, would the landscape requirements increase commensurate with the parking?
No. No, I don't think so, because they're still under, well, let me give me a minute to double check, actually.
All right. Anything further?
Yeah, I
Maybe have a
have
follow-up? Okay, sure. We'll wait a second then.
Yeah, we calculated it based on, them providing the maximum number, so let me look and see if we could.
Need a few minutes on that, Zach?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up just right now. My ordinance is running a little slow. I'm using the digital one. This is a good test. Ben, your new project manager, is trying to get it on the paper version faster than I can get it on the digital version. So we'll race to the scene here.
You got a head start.
Yeah. So the perimeter of parking lots. Let's see. Landscaping standards within parking lots. 1 tree for every 8 parking spaces. So yeah, with the 16, it was 2. I guess you would need an additional tree. They do actually have a couple of little areas that can be interpreted as landscape islands, where they do have a couple of on-site trees and that. So without looking at the site plan detailed, I'm not sure if any of those would qualify. Maybe Brent could take a look at that.
My second question is, looking at the site plan that we were given, and I don't know the accuracy of the cars placed in the stacking lane, but the last car, the 4th car to the right, or the one most eastward, seems to really interfere with the ability of people to get in those spaces, on those last 4 spaces, or at least the last 3 of the 4 spaces. Is that 4th car that's shown on the site plan, is that counted as part of the stack up?
Let me see here. Yeah, Brent, can you pull that one up? Well, keep in mind they're actually required to have 10 stacking spaces, not 4. He just happens.
I know,
to
I
be
just
showing.
can't tell how many are there. Does that last one represent 10, or does it?
Well, we went through and scaled it, and it's actually, it would actually kind of curl around there, I think. I'm not sure if those cars are placed in the exact locations, to have adequate. I don't have the calculations in front of me, but we measured basically the linear feet that went all the way around, and they could have stacking all the way in front of that dumpster, and we've permitted that kind of configuration before.
To prevent people from using those spaces or getting out of those spaces.
Conceivably, when there's cars in there. We remember we dealt with that with like the car washes, for instance, on Rochester Road, where, we had stacking. They were required to have something like 36 stacking spaces according to our ordinance because of the length of that drive-through. And we permitted ultimately stacking to be basically all the way out to the road there. So theoretically, yeah, you could be like vacuuming your car, and if they were that busy, you could have the stacking lane, blocking ingress and
I
egress.
certainly think that wouldn't be advantageous for the development here, but even from our standpoint, I mean, it's just not good planning. I mean, if we don't have something in our ordinance to cover something like that, I think we should consider that down the road.
We could, yeah. We don't have anything in our ordinance that would prohibit you from having stacking that would kind of spill into just the regular maneuvering lane of the parking area there. It doesn't require them to be like isolated or anything like that. We try to look at it for good planning principles. You know, there are probably going to be a couple times a day when they do have a lot of stacking there. My guess is that for a Tim Hortons, when the stacking is really busy, the restaurant itself probably won't be that busy. It's going to be, you know, your morning vehicular traffic and that. But I've been to Tim Hortons when they're really busy. I'm sure you could conceivably see them having 15 cars queued up all the way around that site.
Well, they're making the argument they need more parking because of their inside operation. So-
Which led me to my question about how they came up with the 22 number, because I wanted to know a little bit more information about where does the business come from rather than just, we want to have the parking, you know?
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, I piggyback on what John was just saying. Based on what your recommendation was to shift the dumpster location up in that corner and perhaps at a 45-degree angle, it'd actually negate the problem as far as somebody backing into that person that's stacking up. I think that would take care of that. But the concern that I have is the second item here is the inside area. I don't know how to describe it. Where we have the cars parked at diagonal to each other, where there are 3 cars and 2 cars, and the 2 cars, the dimension there is 19.5. If we have any kind of a van or any kind of a large vehicle, that's going to be a real problem area for anybody to back in and out of. I think that should be corrected there as well. I don't know if I'm making myself clear or not. Did everybody understand what I was saying? The dimension there, 19.5, I thought our zoning ordinance read that we had to have 20.
The parking stall length for a 90-degree space requirement, the new ordinance is 19 feet.
It is 19?
So technically it is compliant, but I mean, I sympathize with what you're saying there, is that you could park, if you parked a pickup there, it could be hanging.
Especially the type of clientele that they have is not going to be, the Cadillac so much as it would be, the average worker, which comes in with various panel trucks, etc. So that would be a concern that I would have on that. But the other item, I agree with you in terms of putting the dumpster up in that corner, and that way the truck can actually pull in and back out, and then double back or go all the way around if he wished.
Well, I mean, if you were to move the stall up to that corner, he would, he could put parking spaces where the stall is now.
Exactly.
He wouldn't lose any parking and
Exactly.
maybe lose one space. But if you put it on an angle, like you said, it could help alleviate the problem that Mr. Tagle brought up. At least help it a little bit.
Is there anything further at this time? Is the petitioner present? Please come forward, sir, and please sign in and tell us who you are and
Thank you,
tell
Mr.
us about
Chairman.
Tim Hortons.
I am Patrick Bell with Tim Hortons. The development before you today actually is one of our new cafe and bake shop models. Sorry, I have the right.
No problem.
The restaurant is approximately 1,950 square feet. This location will also have outside seating associated with it. And there's a little bit of a story behind that. We partner typically with Cold Stone, and when we do that in certain locations, we quickly found out that a lot of our guests really enjoyed the outside dining experience. So we have incorporated into this new design. The operation itself is a little bit different than what you might see in a typical quick-serve restaurant. We do what we call presentation baking. We actually brought the baking up front where you can see that occurring in the restaurants. And we provide a large menu that ranges from, the typical coffee and donuts that we're famous for, but also lunch options such as soups and sandwiches. This restaurant will have, again, the cafe and bake shop. It has soft seating inside, which gives you more of a cafe style. It also has a flat screen TV, free Wi-Fi connectivity. fireplace, and it's really, in my opinion, a great dining experience, and it's really enjoyable. I'm available to answer any questions. I did review the letter that the consultant provided, and as he mentioned, we have discussed either directly or indirectly a number of these items, and I think that we can resolve most of these items very easily.
What's your comment regarding our discussion on the parking?
The parking, I did provide a little more information in that letter. I think that is a little bit more appropriate when it comes to why we would like to see more parking on this development. Our operation itself, we typically have 6 folks employed at a time on a shift. If you add that calculation, add those into the calculation of the parking there, and then you take away the ADA spots that are only used intermittently, we're really only left with 8 parking spots for a restaurant that seats 26 people on the inside and another 16 on the outside. I think it's very conceivable with the location of this development that we will be seeing a fairly good inside morning crowd, and I believe even a better inside lunch crowd. And I think 8 spots is very limiting to us on this site in that respect.
What percentages do you expect would be drive-through business?
Well, everyone is different. Every one of our locations is different. I would say, yeah, on average, probably 65 to 70% of our business goes through the drive-through.
And you think that'll be pretty typical for this location as well, except you expect more inside business?
Yeah, I think that's it's probably pretty typical here. I would probably, if I'm looking at it, go towards the lower end, because I do believe that we're going to get a larger lunch crowd at this location that we might see at some of our other locations.
Okay. Is there any questions of the petitioner? Mr. Krant?
Patrick, I see those 2 parking spots that Mr. Stratt brought up that could create a conflict pulling it out.
Okay.
Could you have those labeled maybe employee parking so that, yes, that's where they park and it wouldn't be a conflict?
Yeah, as I listened to the discussion, just to kind of talk about a couple of things at once, the parking on the northeast portion of the property is typically kind of designated as employee parking. They're going to wind up being there before any of the guests really show up. But I do hear the comments on the dumpster. This is a typical layout for us. It does function. We can get trucks around this site. We do it quite often. But I have no objections to relocating the dumpster to that location. That would eliminate those 2 parking spots and eliminate that conflict. And then we could definitely make up those other 2 spots back where the dumpster was located.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Tegel?
What time does your truck come in, delivery trucks come?
Well, there is no set time, but I can tell you that we have a blackout time between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning that they're not allowed in. I would say the typical time is probably between 10 and 3 o'clock.
So it is during business hours?
Yes. Well, it's a 24-hour operation, so yes.
Oh, it is at 24?
Yes.
Okay. All right. How large of trucks do you get?
Probably, that's a good question. That we use a supplier that has different size trucks. I think our largest truck is probably a WB65, so 65-foot truck.
Okay. Was there any other question? Mr. Edmonds?
The dumpster truck, what size is that?
I don't know off the top of my head. It would be the typical dumpster trucks that you see with the front end overhead.
And
loading.
Is that how often is that? Is it on call, or do you have a scheduled?
There would be a schedule for that set up by the operations.
From current experience at the other locations, how often is that?
I would say that it's probably 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, at this time, you can have a seat, sir, for
Thank you.
a couple of minutes. I'm going to open a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone present wishing to speak regarding this request? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Mr. Sabanen?
I'd just like to make an announcement. If anyone is in the audience tonight for the Board of Review, this is the Planning Commission. The Board of Review is out the door, down the hall to the right. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Schultz?
Question for Mr. Sabanen, or Mr. Brannigan. Do we have any restrictions in Troy on dumpster pickup times? This property does abut residential, and a dumpster truck showing up at 4 o'clock in the morning is really not going to be terribly considerate. And my concern is they're probably going to have the dumpster picked up when there's no cars in the parking lot.
We have a noise ordinance that would be in place. Mr. Monson, is there another ordinance that you're aware of that would pertain to dumpster pickups at 4 o'clock in the morning?
We have a nuisance ordinance, Chapter 88, that talks about unreasonable noises, but there's no specific time periods, but that could be applicable.
I personally think it's very important that we keep in mind that this is going to be directly across the street from residential properties. It may be a gravel road, but it's a residential property. And my other comment is I'm kind of uncomfortable approving anything that has upwards of a dozen conditions attached to it. And I'm leaning toward postponing this for 2 weeks so that the petitioner can get all their paperwork correct and ducks in a row and things sealed and bring it back and get it approved.
Mr. Edmonds?
I believe that Tringali, I think there is a city ordinance for the Tringali trucks that come through the neighborhoods. I don't think they can start before 8 a.m.
I think that might be part of the contract, but I don't believe the ordinance covers it.
It's not a city ordinance?
I believe it's covered.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
It is a special use application, so keep that in mind. You know, we do have the ability to attach use specific conditions to the property if there's things you feel strongly about. And, to Mr. Schultz's comment, there was a little bit of confusion today over some of the other things. We ultimately do recommend approval of this project because we support the project largely, but I just wanted to make it known to the Planning Commission, we have no specific objection to a 2-week postponement, to move, to get everything in order if that's something you'd feel more comfortable with, especially after the bike rack comment. That was just, that put me over the edge. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, well, thank you for that. And so we can't put conditions on when a dumpster removal could take place.
I believe you
we
could.
can put conditions on it just about anything.
Confirm with Mr. Motzny, but I believe you could certainly add reasonable conditions to a special use.
Mr. Chairman?
All right. Yes. Mr. Stratt?
Yeah. Can I ask the petitioner a question?
Sure. Let me guess. Come forward, sir.
Did you receive the punch list prior to your submission of our requirements?
Yes, sir.
You did?
Yes, sir.
Why did you not comply with it then?
I think there was some confusion over some of the items in regard to, what needed to be in there and what wasn't in there. As an example, the signing and sealing of the architectural plans, I think that just kind of slipped through the cracks because we did have the engineer sign the other plans.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I concur with Mr. Schultz's comments that, it seems like we're constantly getting this laundry list, but this is far in excess of what I think is reasonable. But however, I will say this, that we're trying to do everything we can to expedite, and that's important to all the clients and everyone, I think. And that's something also that we're trying to weigh each time, but
right.
There is a limit, and I'm not sure which way I would go. I'd go along with the majority of the commission, but I have concern about that because it seems to be kind of a regular situation here. They should be really overviewing and doing the punch list. As a matter of fact, I think we'd like to have a copy of it again. I would like to have a copy of it again, if at all possible.
Right. Well, each case is individual. There are a number of items here. I don't see anything major. However, I'd be in favor of going ahead with conditions, only because even though the list is lengthy, I don't see any major roadblocks that we can't cover with conditions and a resolution. So, Mr. Tagle?
Well, I understand and somewhat agree with you, but we're talking about changing a site plan here. And we don't know quite what the outcome of that's going to be. So I really think seeing what the final drawing is going to be would be prudent on our part, as opposed to just adding the conditions and letting it be worked out without any final review.
Sure, thank you. Mr. Grant?
Yeah, I would like to see the final layout for the parking especially. I think that, we've talked at least 3, if not 4 different ways to change the parking and the drive-through, and I'd like to actually see the plan before I voted on it.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Schultz?
Just a comment and maybe a question for Mr. Motstein. In the past, we've always taken the position that the site plan is what we approve at the meeting, and once again, I don't have a problem if it says they've got to add an extra tree or a bike rack, but if it's eliminate parking places and relocate a dumpster, I can't vote to proceed with this until we have a site plan that we're going to be able to say that's the site plan that we approved, not something that's going to be redesigned after we approve it.
Okay, thank you. Well, it seems that the commission is leaning toward a postponement or a tabling. Mr. Sabato?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. One, I want to be clear that there's no misunderstanding here. When Mr. Stratt, you asked an excellent question. Why were you not provided with revised drawings? I don't want it to appear that Patrick dropped the ball in any way. We've got we try to expedite applications in every instance, and we pride ourselves in being fast, fair, and predictable. And we get an application in 30 days prior to a planning commission meeting. We do our best to get it on that planning commission. So we don't want to be the reason that an applicant is held up. When we get the application, we submit it interdepartmentally. We wait for the reviews for interdepartmentally, but take those comments, provide it to the consultant, prepares a review, gets it back to us. It sounds like it's pretty simple, and it is relatively simple, but 30 days is not a lot of time when you factor in days off and, and busy schedules and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not making an excuse. But Patrick received the comments late last week, and even if he had provided revised drawings to everybody, first of all, it's not a lot of time to make the revisions. It would involve working over the weekend, and secondly, it would involve like bringing them to this meeting, which really isn't effective either. It doesn't give you time to review. So I just want to be clear that he's been pretty responsive. Actually, the first concept plan that was provided to us initially, we had a lot of comments, and he basically took most of those comments into consideration, greatly expanded the outdoor seating area, did some really cool things with landscaping and whatnot. So he's listened and he's worked with us. So I wanted to be clear. So, and secondly, and probably more importantly, if the direction of the Planning Commission is to postpone, I want to be clear, it would be 2 weeks. If it's to postpone, could we provide some direction to the applicant regarding the parking? Would you consider, just so he knows how many spaces he's going to put on the site plan, just so we're clear?
All right, we can talk about parking for a minute. What are your thoughts on how many spaces you'd like to see? Mr. Schultz?
The petitioner, I think, probably knows his business much better than any of us at this table do. And if he says he needs X number of parking places and he can get that many parking places and stay within the ordinance, I have no problem with it. If he's going to go beyond whatever the maximum line is according to our ordinance, then we're going to have to see the drawings and work from there. Okay. But if he says he needs 18 or 20 or 22 spaces and he can fit 9.5 foot wide spaces by 19 feet deep and get them all on there, I have no problem with that.
Okay. Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, just I'm going to throw out something just as a possible suggestion, and I'm not too sure I would agree with this, but you've got 2 lanes exiting. One is left lane and the other is a right-hand lane, and one lane that actually is coming into the structure itself. Our big concern right now, one of the things, is walkability. And one of the key things that we stress in walkability is trying to get the people that are active as close as possible to the road. If you were to actually make 1 lane going in like you have, or 2 lanes going in, and actually instead of having it circulate and come around the front of your building, if you had it exiting directly out and actually brought your building forward and actually brought the outside umbrellas that you have and the seating closer to the road so it's seen more, I think that might be a suggestion that I'm making, and that's strictly a suggestion, and I don't mean to be designing your building, but those are the things that we are looking for as a part of our rezoning of our ordinance or reactivating our ordinance the way that we did. So you might want to consider that, but you know your operation better than all of us here. But I'd like to see is, if you can, that'd be great if you're going to be redoing it and having that parking, seating as close as possible to the drive. That seems to be a very popular thing around here at any rate. I don't know where you're from. But Capital Grill, which is one of the tops, also has that, and you're seeing a lot of that with the restaurants. The outside is a very important thing right now and very active. So I think you're going to have a lot of success with that, but you may have even more success if it were brought further.
Mr. Schultz?
My only concern with that is we're talking an additional curb cut on Maple Road.
Yeah, I agree.
You're going to have 4 curb cuts all right next to each other, and I think I prefer it the way it is now. They still have the patio area with a fence around it, and I think the additional curb cut outweighs the advantage of bringing the building closer to the road myself.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sabato?
I think in concept, Mr. Stratt, that's a really good idea because it provides a lot more open space and a lot more kind of friendlier walking and pedestrian and seating environment. I don't disagree. Where I would have a concern if we went in this direction, I agree with Mr. Schultz. Having 4, it's not so much the number, it's the distance, I think. Like if you look here, it's very close to this adjacent curb cut here. To the west. We could, if they wanted to go in this direction, we would certainly involve Bill Hootery, the transportation engineer, in this dialogue.
Restaurant that we have, right?
Mr. Evans?
Does this plan provide for a deceleration lane? Is that in there already, or?
No, it does not. I don't believe that was required.
No, on Crooks. And
one other
Go
follow-up.
ahead, Mr. Evans.
The escape lane that
One
we
person
talked
talking at a
about.
time, please. I
The escape lane is.
can't quite hear things.
The escape lane is first of all, I'm a really big fan of Tim Hortons. I'm in there at least 3 times a week, and at the one on Rochester Road, and I even know the owner. And so, yeah, it's a great operation. But I've been there when it's really tight in terms of parking, and people, somebody's trying to come in right away off of Rochester Road, and there's another person coming out right in front of the building and trying to go out. And they're like that, and it has held up traffic. So I would like to see that there's no problem with escaping by going around, because I've also had to turn around, as somebody else mentioned. Fortunately, I saw it before I got in the drive-through lane, and I was able to turn around behind the building. But
what was that restaurant?
that's all I had.
All right. Well, I accept the petitioner's explanation for the need for the additional parking spaces. It makes perfect sense for the type of business he wants to operate, so I don't have any issue with him requesting 26 parking spaces personally, although it's going to require action by someone else. Is there any other comments on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
Yeah, just a comment. We had Starbucks that was on a corner of Crooks and Big Beaver that we have only in one direction and then out on the other, but I do agree, and I do think that Mr. Hootery is the one that would have to make that determination whether or not there could be an additional cut and what the dangers would be with that. But I'm looking at it from several aspects, and one is the things that we're trying to actually maximize, which is walkability.
All right, thank you. Mr. Evans?
One other quick one. We didn't talk about stormwater management or anything. Does that affect this site at all?
Mr. Sabato?
They will have to provide stormwater detention on the site.
There is a detention basin, an enclosed one on the south of the building to the east, and how that property wraps around. I did review. I noticed that, and it appears there is detention.
So they could access that?
I'd have to check the file specifically how the engineer, the engineer's comments.
It appears that it's on their property. The property wraps around that building, so that is on their site. So I believe that's a new detention basin.
All right, Mr. Schultz?
Just to clarify, the Starbucks at Crooks and Big Beaver does have in and out on both drives.
Yeah, I understand that. I understood that.
I just want to make sure that it's not one way in.
Okay, is there anything further? Mr.
I just wanted to echo that I'm going to leave it up to the owner as far as how many parking spaces he really needs, and as long as it fits in with our ordinances, that will be fine with me.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
I just want to clarify, the applicant's letter asked for a 22 space maximum, so if you want a specific number, it was 22 was what they requested.
Okay, that's fine. Well, if there's nothing further, it's obvious we need to table for 2 weeks. You want to make a motion?
You need a motion for that?
Yes, yes, sir, go ahead.
So move that we table this for the next scheduled meeting.
And support from Mr. Schultz. Any discussion on the motion? Vote on the motion, please.
Just, I don't want to be nitpicky, Mr. Sanzika, but I was trained by the legal department here. It's a postponement, correct? Just, we're postponing 2 weeks. Okay. Tabling, I got...
You put words in my mouth.
27th.
That's fine.
Yeah.
To the 27th.
To the next, well, and also, again, not to put words in your mouth, Mr. Sanzika. I guess I'm doing a pretty good job of trying to, though, right? Can we say the next available planning commission meeting, and what that means is, and I don't anticipate this happening, but if the applicant drags their feet and we don't get plans for 3 weeks, it's going to be very difficult to meet the meeting in 2 weeks.
That's fine.
I don't anticipate that happening.
Next
but
available meeting.
Next available meeting.
And second?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm done now.
Okay. Vote on the motion, please.
It was
Mr.
a simple motion, I think.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Motion passes. To the petitioner, are you pretty clear as to what our thoughts and feelings are about your questions?
Yes.
So you're ready to roll, and we'll be back shortly.
Yes.
All right, well, we like Tim Hortons, and we're looking forward to having this go through. So thanks for coming in.
I don't think you need it as wide as that.
All right, next is item 6, elimination of the historic district designation for 4820 Livernois. I know that in the information, this was an informational issue, but is my understanding that we can make a recommendation tonight to Mr. Sevident regarding this item?
Yeah, in preparation for the meeting, Mr. Monsignor reviewed this memo and identified an error that I made in preparing the memo. I'm new at this game, being the historic preservation liaison, and he correctly indicated that the time for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation is actually at this stage, which is a preliminary report. You don't have to make a recommendation, but you can if you so choose to. Essentially, we've got the owner of 4820 Livernois has submitted an application to eliminate the historic district designation on his property. His intention, and here's a picture up on the screen. It's a home that he intends to demolish and eventually put either 2 or 3 homes on this property. I won't go over the report in great detail, but essentially, when the historic preservation ordinance was developed in 1986, there were a number of properties placed on it. This one appears to have been placed on it in error. The assumptions that were made at the time in 1986 as to the reasons for designating this property historic, as it seems, do not hold true. This is based on research done by Ray Lucas from the Troy Historical Museum. Briefly, the assumption at the time was that a number of certain families lived in the home, and research indicated that really none of them ever lived in the home. The home it's kind of implied that it was constructed in 1823, and it appears based on research it was constructed in either 1879 or 1880. And one of the major reasons for placing the home making a historic district out of the property, was that there was an apple orchard on the property, and the apples were shipped to another property where there was a cider mill, and they made cider on another property. And the apple orchard's not there. There's no evidence that there ever was an apple orchard there, and it was designated because of the apples that, I guess, were sent to a different property for which the cider mill no longer exists. So we're recommending, the Historic District Study Committee recommended delisting. It's before you this evening to do what you will. And that's my brief report.
So we can recommend delisting?
Yes, you can.
Or not, or do nothing at all?
That is correct.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board. Mr. Edmonds?
If there's no discussion, I'd move that the Planning Commission recommends that this 4820 Livernois be eliminated from the historic district.
The motion, Mr. Edmonds. Did you have a comment, or was that a second?
Short of the fact that George Washington slept there once. I agree, let's delist it.
Well, I must say the architecture is not thrilling for the period, that's for sure. So, all right. I'll vote on the motion, please.
Was that a second from Mr. Schultz?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Mr. Sanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke? Yes. Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes. Well, that took very little time, that's for sure. Sir, did you want to remove your board, or did you want to wait? I'll give you the opportunity to do that. I know this is, can't miss TV, but I figured you. But thank you again for coming in. Well, next is item number 7, public comments for items on the current agenda. And I don't see anyone who wants to comment at this point, so we're moving along to Planning Commission comments. Mr. Motzni, do you have anything to say this evening?
I don't know if this is Zach's last meeting or not, but if it is, I just want to say it was great working with you, and I wish you well. And I know you've helped this commission out tremendously and the city. So,
Great. Mr.
that's
Sadler?
it.
I think everyone before the meeting had an opportunity to meet Ben Carlisle from Carlisle Workman Associates. If you haven't, please introduce yourself. You'll be seeing his face at, half day Tuesday, half day Thursday, and every planning commission meeting, barring vacation or what have you. So it's great to have Ben on board. He's got big shoes to fill, but I'm 100% confident he'll fill them. Zach, I'm going to miss you, buddy.
Thanks. Mr. Tagle?
Yeah, Zach, I just want to say thank you for all of the effort and time you put in, and enjoyed working with you, and good luck on your new venture.
Mr. Hudson?
Brent, can you give us an update on the digital sign issue?
I cannot, Mr. Hudson, but I'll have an update for you in 2 weeks.
What do you have to do to get an update?
I have to have some internal dialogue
With whom?
with a couple of people above me.
Are you saying that we can't proceed without somebody's consent?
No, I'm not saying that at all. The planning commission can certainly proceed on their own volition.
Thank you.
Mr. Krant?
Just want to thank Zach for all his hard work. Enjoyed working with you. Real pleasure.
Mr. Schultz?
Zach, it's been a pleasure. I just was sitting here earlier going, well, let's see, we had the Big Beaver Corridor Study and the master plan and the Big Beaver Development Standards and the zoning ordinance and the transit center, and I'm sure I've missed several things. You've certainly helped put a major mark on our city, and we appreciate it very much. I wish you all the best in your new endeavor.
Mr. Shipke?
Yes, Zach, I really haven't had a chance to get to meet you and know you, but I'm sure you've done a stellar job in the past, and I wish you all the luck in the world on your new endeavors. And thank you very much.
Mr. Evans?
Ditto. But we're going to really miss you, and I wish you and your family very well, and good fortune up there in the Saginaw Bay. Thank you.
Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, Zach, you're going to do very well, I'm sure. But we thank you for your efforts, and I ditto everything that was said before. So I think that's really great. I have another issue, though, I wanted to bring up, if at all possible. I would like to see, if at all possible, that each of us get a copy of the checklist that is actually submitted or would be submitted to the potential person that's coming in and giving us a presentation, if at all possible. I think that would be very good, so we know what should be and should not be on the drawings, so we're not second guessing. The other thing is, I wonder if we could have something in writing that we can actually understand that explains what conditions require the petitioner to come in with to the site plan for site plan review. What I'm referring to is I'm on the ZBA, and all of us know that I am. And one of the things that happened was at the last meeting, or the meeting before, there was a project that came in that was off of Stevenson Highway that was quite an extensive renovation, with the front end being used as a receiving area. They had an extended patio area. It was quite an extensive remodel. I'd like to know when or what is the criteria that we actually have site plan review. If it's reuse, do we get it or not? What is the criteria that establishes that? We had that situation several years ago, which has been my pet, which was actually the Little Red Wagon, which was on the Livernois and Maple Road. And, they renovated the whole doggone thing, and there isn't a tree on that site. And it really, we had a golden opportunity, and it was a total renovation, and it was a total reuse, because I think it was originally a bank, then it became a retail. Well, that's a total reuse. I think that we should have that opportunity of seeing, again, I'm hoping that the signage would be incorporated with our zoning ordinance as well as landscaping, and that gives us that opportunity. I have a problem with that, and I just want to bring that up. I'd like to have something in writing that tells us exactly what is the requirement when, in fact, they have to come before us and when they can't.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
I think that would be important to have. I don't know if I should make that a resolution or what.
Well, we could talk about it in a study session for sure. Mr. Sanzica?
Well, I'd like to thank Zach again for all his service, and I'm only a short time here, but I was curious, how many years have you been an advisor, consultant to the board?
Let's see, I've been a consultant for 11 years, and I've been with you guys for 6 years.
Yeah.
Well, I know his endeavors in the Water Conservancy Group are going to be quite a bit different than working with planners and developers, but it's going to be a challenge, and it's very rewarding, and I think he'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Mr. Carlo, do you have a comment this evening?
Well, you'll hear me talk a lot in the future, so I don't have a formal introduction, but I just wanted to, on behalf of Carlisle Wortman, the only reason I'm able to fill Zach's shoes is for the hard work and dedication he's given to this community for the past 6 years, 5 years. So I would like to thank him for his hard work and dedication, and I have tremendous shoes to fill. Unfortunately, he's done all the fun projects with the zoning ordinance and all the plans, but I hope to follow his legacy and be with you folks for at least another 6 years. So on behalf of Carlisle Wortman, I'd like to thank Zach for his commitment.
We're glad to have you. Looking forward to working with you. Well, Zach, I let you the last word. I must say, I've learned a tremendous amount from you. You've done so much for the city of Troy. Thank you so much. And I guess I could describe you also as the guy that gives more words per square inch than any man I've ever met. But they're useful. They're useful and they're good. And and you've taught me personally a great deal about planning. And it's been great. So
thanks.
The floor is yours.
Well, what can I say, gentlemen? It's a little bit emotional for me because of all the projects that we have done. I was thinking about it the other day, and I thought, boy, I've worked with about 40 different planning commissions or so in the last 11 years, and obviously I've spent probably the most time with you guys, being with you as many times as we have. But I've also done some of the most extraordinary planning work I think that I've been lucky enough to be involved with, and largely that goes to your credit. You guys have challenged us, and you have allowed us to be progressive, and you have allowed us to come up with, sort of extraordinary suggestions, and, I want to thank you for that. I wouldn't have been as successful as I was, generally in my career if it was not for, the trust that you gentlemen put in us and in Brent and in Mark and everybody else involved. So I personally thank you for allowing me to put together a body of work that I feel very proud of leaving your community. I love the city of Troy, and I care deeply about your future. And you know me, I can't get over the fact that when I talk about Troy, I won't have to use we anymore. It feels odd to talk about, like we were in meetings today, and we this, we that, and I'm just like, well, actually, I'm going to be nowhere near here, next week. So that's a little odd. I wouldn't feel comfortable, as comfortable as I do leaving if I didn't have somebody like Ben to leave it to. I'm very confident that you guys are going to be very excited about having Ben join your team. Just really quickly about Ben, he has basically the same amount of experience, training, and education, including the same certifications that I do. So on paper, we're right there. But, I feel really strongly that Ben, also will be plenty. It will give you plenty to think about, give you plenty of words per square inch, and will do an excellent job. He did go to Ohio schools for undergrad. I don't want you to hold that against him. He did did his master's at University of Illinois in Chicago. And before coming back to Dick's company, Ben built a body of work that really does stand on its own in metropolitan Chicago and that. So you'll learn more about that, I'm sure, as things unfold. But I'm really proud and happy that Ben is going to be working with you, and I think that's going to work out very well. So it's with a little bit of a heavy heart that I leave. I'm excited about the future. You will be hearing from me in the future. In fact, I would encourage you all to support and join the Saginaw Basin Land Conservancy in the future to support our 22-county efforts for land preservation and protection. And I'll definitely forward my resolution.
This time, sure.
Yeah, right. You all saw my memo there that has some of the details about where I'll be, so I hope to hear from you. And I will probably see you at planning conferences and stuff. I'm going to hang on to my AICP for as long as I can get the budget to do so. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will miss you all very much.
Thank you, Kathy. I didn't mean to leave you out. Do you have anything you wanted to add this evening? All right. Thank you. Well, again, Zach, thank you very much for all you've done. Hopefully we'll cross paths again in the future, and good luck to you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.